Welcome everyone to SEO Office Hours. My name is Michael Chidzey. I'm an SEO here at Good Signals. And part of what we do, along with special guests, are these office hour sessions where people can jump in and ask their questions around their website and web search. By the way, nobody here is in the hot seat and we might not know all the answers, but multiple heads thinking about a problem should help. We have a bunch of questions submitted already, as you can see, but if there is anybody here on the call that would like to ask any questions, please feel free to just put it in the chat functionality, which will be monitored. And it's a bit different this week. We have a different co-host. Jo couldn't be bothered to be here. No, I'm just joking. She had some other commitments this week. So she subbed in her twin sister, Ruth. Morning, Ruth. Welcome back.
Good evening from Australia. Good evening. Hello. So yes, welcome everyone. And yeah, thank you very much for joining us all today. Please put in the chat where you're calling from. So I know that this is actually the 27th SEO office hours, which is fantastic. So yeah, we always have a good international group of people joining us. Yes, I'm Joey Easter. I'm here based in Brisbane, digital marketing specialist with a background in PR and marketing. And I've worked in digital marketing for 13 years, focused on SEO and content creation. And in my spare time, I like to surf. And last weekend, I jumped out an airplane. And I must say, quite exhilarating, skydiving. And over to our speakers today. We've got Emily Walker. And I'd like to, that's a short bio about Emily. And then I'll talk about Rob Dawson-Goodey. Emily is the search engine optimization specialist at Barbada Digital and has been working in digital marketing since 2017. She helps brands find new opportunities to compete on Google and measures their success. Emily immerses herself within the SEO community through attending events and with her main passions being keyword research and Google Analytics events tracking to help with search and measuring success. Now, Emily has just actually completed an amazing achievement. Yesterday, she was swimming 70 kilometers, just over 70 kilometers over the month of May in aid of Youth Talk, and she completed actually yesterday. That is actually the same distance as the English Channel, there and back. That is fantastic achievement. So donor support enables Youth Talk to provide free mental health services to young people in our community, and I will drop all the details in the chat. I'll just introduce Rob, and then I'll head over to the speakers there. Rob Dawson-Goodey is the head of owned and earned at Virgin Media O2 with over 15 years of experience in SEO and digital marketing. He actually specializes in various verticals such as content marketing, technical SEO, and customer acquisition. Robert has worked across multiple industries, including travel, telecommunications, and the automotive sector, with extensive knowledge in leading digital teams that deliver significant value. So I will drop that into the chat now, and where you can connect to both Emily and Rob. Over to you both.
Great. Rob, have you done a 70-kilometer swim or anything like that last week?
No, I get tired walking down the stairs, so it's definitely not for me, I'm afraid. I'll leave that pace to Emily. That's a fantastic achievement.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Although I do have a couple of cool facts about you, Rob, because years ago we used to work together.
We did, yes.
One is that Rob is officially the world's crappiest surfer. He took part in the world's crap surfing world championships, and you won that one. And you also took part in the office chair racing world championships in Germany. So pretty active as well.
Yes, I did.
Well,
Yes. I'd like to remind people that Michael was my mentor at the time, and he actually came up with those activities for me to do. If you Google anything, world crap surfing or world office chair racing, you should be able to see something.
Okay, let's crack on. And welcome to everybody who's joining us, by the way. Thank you so much. And thank you to those who are watching it on YouTube afterwards. Okay, first question. Hi, I'm from Dubai and I've been in the SEO world for about 16 years. I have a government client who's facing problems getting their Google My Business profiles verified. They've got 16 locations, and since January 2024, they've been unable to verify 8 of those. We've tried verification for them multiple times and it just gets rejected. Even when we're following all best practices, your guidance here would really help. Is this something anyone else has had issues with before?
So I think I can go on this, Mike. So I suppose
Great.
we go to franchise stores. We had a similar issue on a few stores whereby they wouldn't get accepted into our Google My Business profile. I'm assuming I've taken some assumptions on that question that they were being uploaded in bulk. So what we effectively did is we were doing the same thing, uploading in bulk. So I'd try and upload them individually. I'd also try and request doing the videos again, and they are very, and again, I don't know about Dubai, I don't know in terms of government websites, so they're very picky with specific details. We had to make sure that we were really focused on some of the certain details so that we could get that acceptance within Google Business Profile. So I think number one, redo those videos, make sure you're putting all the details. I know that you've obviously mentioned that you've done the best practices, but I would really go through it with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that you've covered everything. If not, upload them in individually. And the third thing, unfortunately, is we had a few stores that still didn't, and we had to effectively go to the Google Help form. I think we could probably put that in the chat afterwards, Mike, as well. But there is, especially on the UK side, a Google Help form where you could go to.
Great, amazing. Emily or Ruth, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I had a kind of a question really more whether government entities had any additional requirements maybe that would make it slightly trickier, but it makes sense that if you are uploading in bulk to just strip it back and try individually again, and then give the space or the time in between just to allow things to tick over.
Amazing.
Yes, I agree.
Go for it.
And it's also that Google Help actually is very helpful. So I was doing the same thing. It took me 3 months to claim a listing, taking photos, taking videos, and yes, one at a time, leaving the space in between queries. Google Help really does help.
Amazing. By the way, something I forgot to say at the very beginning was we obviously have loads of other SEOs on the call, so feel free to share your perspectives as well. I think that's one of my favorite things about office hours, isn't just us talking, but particularly Simon. Simon, you've usually got some jokes and things like that you drop in the chat, so always feel free to do that. Okay, next question. Let's go with, okay, so I'm an SEO intern at a B2B tech company. Our website, we've got a link here which we'll share in the chat so others can have a look, but I don't know if we've got permission to share it publicly, so I won't say the name on YouTube. So sorry if you're watching afterwards. So our website has only gets a few visitors and most of the pages are not indexed. How do I go about rectifying this? And from my analysis so far, keywords bringing in the traffic to this site, there's only actually a few of them. How can I leverage those keywords to bring in more traffic? Okay, great. Did any of you get a chance to look at the site? I'll just put it in the chat now. So if anyone else fancies having a look, they can.
I had a little look. I think just to kick off, if that's okay, is that okay?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
Go
So
for it.
just when I'm a bit stuck like that, I like to think about pouring all of my SEO efforts into a bucket, and I just like to make sure there's no hole in the bottom, if you like. So I try and make sure everything is as technically sound as possible. So I try and think about crawlability and indexability first. So on the website, it does look like we could do some like tidying up of internal linking, for example, that are linking through to redirects. It looks like maybe there's some duplicate content in terms of closing and non-closing forward slashes. So you might be looking actually 2 versions of the site rather than 1. So my first step would be to have a look at everything technical, make that sound, and then start working on my keywords and kind of content clusters around those keywords.
Amazing. Rob, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, I think to lead on probably from what Emily said, the other thing I would probably look at is, and they mentioned that there was not a lot of keywords for the group, and I suppose I would probably boil it down to intent and entity and really focusing on entity SEO, especially around, okay, you've got a product that may not have massive amounts of search volume, but there are going to be entities and topics around that product that may have small search volume that you can start to leverage, especially within long form content, or you could leverage in expertise content and stuff like that, especially if it's linked to your product. So don't just focus on the 100, the 50 keywords that probably don't have volume. See what your entities and your topics are outside of that and understand whether or not you can tailor that niche to the customers that you're focused on. Because at the end of the day, the customers that you're focused on for those products are going to have certain topics within that area, but they're also going to want to answer. And I think if we boil it down to that, I think if you just spread that out and really focus on that research piece, you should be able to drive that forward. And I think it will grow naturally there. As well as obviously, I would say, whether you're wearing a brand hat or whether you're speaking to your brand team, speak to the brand team about what products they envisage, what they're looking to do, how they're looking to get within market. And then I think you can tailor your SEO to that.
Amazing. Ruth, do you have anything to add? Oh, you're on mute, by the way, Ruth.
Scuba error, not good, was it? Yeah, I just want to say, yeah, expertise content. You hit the nail on the head there. And just with our viewers who are watching on YouTube, if you're enjoying the show, just click a like and subscribe to the Good Signals YouTube channel afterwards.
Amazing. So I've just had a quick look at the site. So the question says that the pages aren't indexed, but I've just looked in Google, and to me it looks like that pages do appear in the Google search results. And I've just done a crawl with Screaming Frog and can see that it looks like most of the URLs are available and available to be indexed. It might be that maybe those pages aren't getting traffic rather than not being indexed. My recommendation there is if there are key pages you're worried to put them into Google Search Console, just do inspect URL, and you'll be able to see what Google's seeing and if there's any other reason why those pages might not be appearing. So yeah, firstly, just I'm not sure if that is totally accurate, but obviously your Google Search Console will tell you whether that is the case. And then totally agree with everybody else, just about if you want to try and rank, improving the pages, improving the overall quality of the website, and thinking about different content. It looks like it's a pretty big site as well. When I say big, couple of hundred pages. So it's not like a brochure website for anybody watching on YouTube where it's just like 5 pages. There's quite a lot there. So it might be the case that you just have to make sure what you're targeting in the first place, that there is any search volume. And if there is, I look at the competition, see what else is ranking, try and work out what is it and why are those pages ranking over ours. I think there's some comments in the chat, Ruth.
Yeah, exactly. So Preeti's mentioned this could be obviously a small thing. She doesn't really like the mouse thing as a user, and the internal linking is bagged. Simon, you've raised an interesting point there. It looks like it's based in the US, but maybe the target market is Africa. You're saying that I check what you can see from Africa and if there's any geolocation nonsense going on, and then obviously a competitor keyword gap analysis.
Amazing. So hopefully that's given you a starting point. Sorry, Rob, were you going to say something?
No.
Sorry, I thought someone was going to say something. Cool. I think that's a really good starting point. So I would check whether indexing is an issue or not, and then B, look at improving the overall website, look at competitors, and think about entities. Amazing. Okay, cool. We're flying through these today. Do you know what? Maybe it's Joe that slows us down. Maybe that's what it is. Don't tell her I said that. Okay, these are quite big questions. So this is an interesting one. It's not something that I've thought of before, but somebody's just got this as a thought. Does anybody know if Google Search Console counts rank trackers verifying rankings as impressions? What they're basically saying here is that keyword planner tools and Google Search Console seems to be out in terms of monthly search volume and then the amount of impressions. Is this something anyone else has come across before? It's not something I've even thought about, but I guess makes sense if I usually do see quite a disparity between what the tools say in terms of average search volumes and then what we're seeing in Search Console.
I think from my side, I see it as if they match the same trends, then I'm more or less than happy. We're not going to get everything that we want, especially with obviously what Not Provided had, and they are effectively using keyword planner. So for me, it's very much a case of as long as they match the same trends and they give a rough idea, whether the disparity is out by percentages, then I think it's just something that you focus on. I think you get it from your own data, internal data, from the products that you're going for, the value you want to drive for your own customer. I think that ultimately that kind of rings true, and that's something I think that I've not had any experience on the keyword differences between GSC and whether keyword tools are actually driving with impressions within GSC.
Great. Emily, do you have any thoughts?
I've always felt that different tools pull their data in different ways, so there always is a little bit of a disparity between the two. I think Keyword Planner in particular, I think groups data in a certain way. I don't know how specifically, and then Search Console may not. But in terms of ranking trackers being included in impressions, from my understanding, I don't believe that happens. But I haven't seen it firsthand to be able to confirm yes or no. But from what I've read, they're not usually included in impressions in Search Console.
Yeah, interesting. It's not something I've thought about before. Ruth, have you got anything to add?
No, I'm like with you, Mike. I had not thought about that before either. Simon's got a comment here. Monthly search volumes are just a guess based on third-party data. Never trust them.
Interesting. Okay, next question. I've got a load in front of me, by the way, trying to pick them out. Okay, so I quite like the beginning of this question. It's quite familiar. Get this. For Tag Manager, I realized no one has admin access, not even the founder. I think it was someone who's left. And we also have a weird second analytics account that seems to have the same issue. That one is connected to our Google Ads account. Any ideas on what I should do? So it seems a bit of a mess in terms of configuration there with Google Tag Manager, and they can't access these accounts. Emily, you're nodding. Any thoughts?
I think when it comes up to setting up events and things like that, if the actual event or what you're tracking from an event and key event point of view, if that was prior to UA sunsetting, I think it's a really good opportunity to revisit your events, and because you can rethink the way you're pulling in the data when you're using GA4 and Tag Manager for your events tracking. So you can maybe rethink what you want to see with it, with each kind of engagement event on the site. So that's, I'd see it as a kind of a new opportunity to improve things. I'm assuming that historical data would still be accessible, just no edit or publishing capabilities. The historical data is always there for you to refer to, and it might, I know it's a hefty feat, but it may be worth starting afresh.
Yeah. Rob, do you have any thoughts?
No, at that point, I agree with Emily. I agree with Simon in the chat as well. Start a new one. The only thing I would do is make sure you get any historical data that you can get into your own file, so that you can do year on year, quarter on quarter, month on month analysis, and you can understand benchmarking and set up a new one.
Great. Yeah, I think we're all agreed on that. The only other thing I was going to say is, if you know who that employee was that set it up originally, maybe you could recreate the email account and just try and get access that way if you really want to get access to what's there. But it's pretty easy to just set something up again and just replace the code. That's what I'd recommend. Ruth, what about yourself?
Well, yes, I'm thinking about Google. Could Google help here, for example? If you do have access to that email, you can speak to IT. That might be one last final attempt. And then, yes, unfortunately, you have to start from fresh.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's my dog. Sorry about that. Me to death. Okay, next question. We can see in keyword tools that there isn't a lot of search volume. Is it still worth investing in SEO? Rob, how do you fancy starting with this one? What do you think?
Yes, I mean, look, investing in SEO, it's the term investing is always quite funny, but
I love that term. Investing in SEO. That's a great.
Because from an SEO perspective, and I think just from a general website customer intent perspective, SEO is merged so closely with topics and products and brand and even just development itself that you're not investing. You need to do it in a way that effectively looks to drive the volume and the value that you have, and you keep other people honest. I always see SEO as almost like the footings, the foundation for all the work that's going to go on top of a website, especially with the brand team, the product team. So that effectively, it's always worth doing. In terms of the long tail, we know from the famous graph, the long tail keywords and the head terms and stuff like that, I think, again, if you're looking for a product, if you know what your customer's doing and it's like, you will find keywords, you will find volume that are focused around that. I would then take that wider and take it deeper and effectively look at what entities, what topics touch that subject, because okay, there may not be massive amounts of volume for one keyword, but again, if you're getting the data from Keyword Planner, it doesn't really tell the whole truth. And if you've got that knowledge of your market and I said the customer intent, then I would still focus on those keywords and focus on those products. I think just develop those further and develop those in other topics and other entities around those products as well.
Amazing. And what about you? I mean, any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I would say absolutely. Even if it's low search volume, it just reinforces that it's quite a specific query. It's a specific need. So it seems like it's a no-brainer to try and solve that problem. It not only does it help your SEO, but it boosts your credibility as well. And it goes into being a bit of a thought leader. And then if it is a product specifically, I think we sometimes know that the website isn't always the first touch point anymore. So if the awareness of the product is across other forms of digital content, and then the awareness grows, then the foundation is there for when the search volume kind of kicks off. So I definitely think it's worth investing. Yeah.
Great.
I think also looking at those keywords, sorry to add, looking at those keywords in line with the buying journey. An example that's always good when I was in travel was holidays to Mallorca. Large head term, a lot of people go there, but conversion rate is going to be relatively small. Whereas cheap holidays for a family of 4 with 2 kids They are much further down the journey. They are looking directly for certain things that they can attribute to their purchase. That may only have a search volume of 5, but if I convert 4 out of the 5, then I've made X amount of K on a holiday versus what I would have done on cheap holidays. There is definitely value within doing that. And I think just making sure that if you've identified long tail that may not have that much search volume, but is part of your overall buying journey, then by all means you should be, optimizing product pages, understanding the intent of those product pages.
Amazing. Ruth, what about you? Any thoughts?
Yes, yeah, and what I'll do is I'll summarize what's in the chat because everyone's on the same page here. So we've got here, yes, long tail keywords have no volume, but they're most likely to convert. Yes, thank you, Simon. And Ruth says, yeah, those keywords helps content coverage. And Amaka says, yeah, don't dwell on the keyword volume, dwell on what your readers want. So yeah, long tail keywords are still super helpful, even with very low specific volume, a lot more specific and original. And yes, talk about the buyer journey. That's a very important thing to consider. So from my point of view, I think SEO really is part of marketing, as we were all discussing. What is your product? What do you want to be known for? As you were saying, Emily, it's not just the web. We also have other platforms such as Google Business Profile. So we want to make sure that if we're typing in, let's say, ophthalmologist Sydney, that ophthalmologist clinic comes up, and it'll probably come up on a mobile at the top, because a lot of people now are obviously checking it on their mobile and they want to make an action within 2 clicks. So yes, it's all about marketing. What is your product?
Great. It also sounds like the person's at the very beginning of the journey or of the website, the fact that they're just thinking about keywords and search volume now. And one of the things I always find when I start working on a new project is you don't know until you start getting involved in the project. So for example, if you look at things like Google Search Console, once you start putting content on your website and you start ranking for certain terms and getting impressions, when on day 1 versus sort of month 1, sometimes using the insights that you're getting from things like Search Console, the actual target terms that you're looking at will probably change based on what you're learning. So that's one thing. If you're only basing it on, say, a handful of keywords or 20 keywords, there could be a ton that you haven't even thought of. We're actually working with somebody at the moment who they're in the kind of B2B space. And if I'm honest, there isn't a lot of search volume there either. And it's a project that we didn't actually want to take on. And we told them that, but we've been going back and forth with them for a while. And so the compromise has basically been that what we're going to do is create content for them that they can reuse for other channels, such as social and for PR activities and for when they're giving talks and doing webinars and all of those things. So it may be that rather than solely thinking about SEO, you might be thinking about how can I also create some stuff that we can use for other things that then takes that pressure off if there isn't the keywords, the search volume, that you're worried about. Things like really good content that you could also send out on email, maybe use for display ads, that sort of stuff. That's what we're going to be doing for them. So that would be my recommendation there. Super. Okay. Anything else, Ruth, in the chat, or should we just jump straight on to the next question? You're on mute again.
Not gonna have me back on. Yeah, there's quite a few. Yeah, I just would like to quickly comment because this obviously a lot of people have a lot of opinions on this, and we all love SEO. So Faison said if you're covering a topic with topical authority, you should cover almost every keyword on that topic that even have a small volume. So long tail keywords are also likely to get you conversions. We've got here that you need to have long tail keywords as a goal for everyone, Umar. And your words should provide answers to user queries, as says Mohammed, whether it's long tail or short. And it all goes back to what we said before, what you want to be known for.
Great, super. Okay, next question. What are your thoughts on the site reputation abuse update? Many major newspaper sites' subdomains were affected manually or algorithmically. It seems unfair as big publishers are only hit on their subfolders or subdomains, whereas smaller publishers face site-wide penalties. Do you have any insights? If I'm honest, we don't usually cover questions like this. They're more, they tend to be a bit more actionable, but because we've got Rob here, and obviously Rob, O2 and Virgin Media, I thought you might have some sort of insight on this. Putting the pressure on you here right now, Rob. If you don't, that's totally fine. What are your thoughts on this?
We stood to gain from that. So if you look at what the update was and how it did, we essentially, as a brand, was rewarded with various brand terms that we were seeing clicks fall away to. An example would be, and you'll see it, Daily Mail and the Independent and stuff, they do this very well, which is they'll go after specific discount code terms, especially within the UK, there's discount terms. So these are effectively last click stealers, where they'll take a brand term with a discount code and they'll apply a load of discounts to a product, or they'll have an affiliate tracking and they'll send you through. And what we noticed, I think, especially after that update, was Daily Mail disappeared from our brand terms. We actually gained percentage of clicks overnight.
Yeah.
So we've been rewarded by that. And I think, again, it's something where we've tried to own our brand traffic, and it's something that we want to own our brand traffic. And I would actively say never, ever ignore your brand traffic, because your brand traffic can give you so many gains, and not just generics, but brand traffic in general can give you so many gains. So we were rewarded by it. So I'm slightly biased. I was jumping for joy on that day. Like, we've gained X amount of clicks, we've gained X amount more revenue back. For me, it was good. I understand that there is a view that sometimes it can lean too heavily to those brands, that diversification, especially within SMEs and smaller businesses, trying to get the foot in the door can be quite difficult. For us, I think it was, and there's no two ways about it, it was a good thing for us. And I think it's something I'd actively want Google to push more of, because when an SME or a small business then starts to gain that, why you spend all this money on brand if you don't get any volume or value for it? And I think that really, for me, is where I think that fairness. So in my eyes, I think it was a fair thing that was rolled out. As with Google, they may tweak it slightly. They may need diversification. We don't want to have a monopoly of search results. We don't want everyone to be like within those search results. We don't want everyone to have it. We were only going against that. But at the same time, from a brand perspective, if you can control your brand, if you can spend money on your brand, which is what Google wants you to do, because Google loves brands. Let's be fair. Google loves brands, and you're rewarded by building a brand. Then you should obviously reap the rewards.
Great. Emily, do you have any additional thoughts?
Just that, I guess the main principle of it is that first party oversight over any third party related content. And I do think that's important and a good thing to push. I think it would only improve things and make things more like, I don't know if accurate is the right word, but in from that sense, it's a good thing.
Great. Ruth, anything to add?
It's really interesting actually hearing you both talk about that. It's great, thanks.
Cool. Okay, great. Yeah, I think everybody probably is on X and they hear all the bad stuff. And I just thought it was interesting hearing a brand's perspective there on it. And obviously, Rob, we briefly spoke about it yesterday, hence wanting to bring that question up. Okay, next question. So this isn't really I don't think an SEO office hours question, but I think it's an SEO company asking the question. So we'll go with it because we've got Emily here, and I think Emily could probably help with this. How/where have you seen the most success in gaining new clients? I.e., is it LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, etc.? Notice SEO is actually not on the list. Emily, any thoughts in terms of gaining new clients? If, for instance, you're a new freelancer or SEO agency, you're setting up and you want to try and drive more business. Any thoughts?
It's coming back to that kind of people are accepting that the website isn't always the first touch point. I think people are, and with GA4 and how the attribution model has changed, I do think multi-channel is a little bit more accepted as a norm tactic or a general tactic, if that could resonate. But I think it's important at the moment. It's just a really, I don't know if you agree, but it's just such a tough market at the moment, and trust is really important. Decision-making processes are taking a little bit longer. So yeah, no, trust is massive. So it's demonstrating why you are the best kind of guest partner of choice, and then thinking how you'll demonstrate that with your digital content across platforms. For us here as an agency, that for us is how do we demonstrate our specialists across our digital platforms. So we try and go from a people perspective, but research wise, it's really important to know who you're actually talking to. And you've got tools like Zoom Info, you've got LinkedIn Pixels to actually see what kind of job roles or who the people are looking at you, and then you can speak to them. But from a real kind of life example, I wouldn't say it wasn't so much bringing in lots of customers, but it was bringing in the dream customer. And that was just making sure we had some solid processes in place with the right people. So just this client example was in a cyber security space, very competitive. And the processes we had in place were those long tail search, providing long form content that really solved a specific need that they helped with for a specific, I think it was a cloud warehousing system from memory. And then we made sure the right people within their organization were then repurposing that content across other platforms such as LinkedIn. That was a really relevant one for that kind of B2B space for that particular client. And that visibility there, it had a little knock-on effect, and they landed like a government contract. So it's the dream contract, but it was multi-channel together, making sure we had the right tactics and then the right people repurposing that content across platforms. I hope that helps. And but add in anywhere, but yeah.
Yeah,
that's kind of
amazing. Rob, what about you from a brand perspective? How would you find an SEO agency or a digital marketing agency? Notice all the SEOs on the call leaning forward now.
My procurement team might have something to say about it, unfortunately. But no, I think I won't come at it from a like the actions that Emily, because I think those are really clear and really insightful. I think what I'll come from it from and I've done agency side as well, but from a brand perspective especially, and I've also done startup in the automotive section as well. So I would say that whilst you're doing all those actions of going to meetups and putting yourself out there locally and having those discussions, but also I'd really like put forward your expertise in one thing and be an expert within that one area that you can be the go to fix a problem. Because that's where I think for me, myself, if I've got a problem or an issue that I want to deal with and I need third-party support in order to do that, whether that's whenever any walks of life or any area, I want that expert to come and help me. That expert will then, by showing that support case, by doing that work that allows us to drive value, because always link back to value, then you can then start to build. And I think reputation then starts to come into it. Now, it's very easy for me to turn around and say, go build your reputation. But I think alongside the stuff that obviously Emily's suggested, I think always have in the back of your mind, be an expert on that one thing that you can really nail. So when you're doing your marketing, when you're doing your talks, when you're going out to local meetings and meetups, if you've got that nailed down, you'll start to really feed that into it. And then people will start to come to you. And I think that's really the best way to start off with, and then you can grow out from there.
Amazing advice. Actually, I was just thinking about that I think there are a couple of people that do that really well, the sort of one thing. So for instance, Jo that does office hours, her business is called Turn Global, and it's about if you want to expand into different markets. You've got people like Natalie Slater who just, when it comes to site migrations, most talks and so on are about that. Lily Ray, amazing, like really focused on core updates and so on. So I get that. Myself, I'm all over the place. We do a mixture of a range of things. In terms of, we're quite lucky, we're quite a small business. We don't need too many clients at once. And within some ways designed to be small, where I like doing the work myself. So we don't tend to have that problem of needing lots of business. But where we do see like an uptick in inquiries, we have like a couple of posts on our website. One's about core updates. Another one is about website migrations. And we often see that when there's a core update and people need help, we sometimes update that post. And then when we update that post, we often see we get people come to us. And I would say if you're going to talk about a topic like that, I would hope the post that we have on core updates, I would hope is a point of difference to what else is there rather than just covering the updates. We look at it from the marketing manager who has noticed their site has been impacted and how to handle those first couple of weeks, rather than most of the things that rank, which tend to be, there's been an update on this particular day and Google said this and said that and so on. And then again, our migration guide is ridiculously long. We don't get much traffic with these, but when we do, we tend to get some really good inquiries. So that's an SEO. But really for us, I would say it's more just, I think people buy from people, like Emily was saying, and I think it's about building relationships with people offline, not just through your website. And some people do that through talks and stuff like that. I don't really like talking in front of people, but some SEOs get lots of inquiries that way. I just tend to go and have great conversations with people, and you never know what might happen. And then I guess there's some people that have amazing newsletters and things like that. They keep everybody up to date. So that's probably another way. Ruth, what about you? Can you tell us the secrets of Turn Global whilst Joe's not here? How are you guys?
All I can say is I think trust. I think, as you said there, Emily and Mike, you talked about people relate to people. And that's actually some of the features here in the chat. So Simon saying, yeah, try local first, Facebook local groups, local print magazines, Instagram groups, local businesses, and commerce breakfast meetups, etc. And make sure then that you steer everyone back to your website, because then obviously then they'll have the time to read all about it. And then Preeti's saying posting on content on platforms that are your ideal clients, you're saying, helps a lot, especially if this content is helpful and practical. And Chris agrees with Rob. So that was just a few minutes ago, just trying to keep up with the chat. Chris is saying that he focuses on specific types of websites to get the best. And this means sometimes he needs to contact prospects, and he gets most through referrals, being referred. And yeah, good point with Simon saying here, solving people's problems, and I'll come back to you. And Mohammed saying here that pure and quality work, even for one client, brings you more clients. So you do a good job for one person to get people talk, and they'll tell somebody else. In my own experience, yeah, starting local and working with other people, doing a good job for one person, I did. And then this client said, oh, who does your digital marketing? And this person said, oh, Ruth does it. And they're like, oh, would I be able to speak to Ruth? So just doing a good job for one person really can open so many doors. And local and trust, there you go. So many different positive factors there.
I have a couple of phone calls every now and then about, can we do design work? Because they really like our website, and I'm like, we're not actually designers, so no. So I end up sharing details of our designer. I'm just like, oh man, it's.
Then they owe you, the designers owe you like a coffee or lots of nights out or dinners or something.
They do a good job, so I do it based on that. Okay, and Simon said there, all my work is referral, which, yeah, totally agree. I think that's the best referral, or the best piece of business comes from referrals. Okay.
Yes.
So this question is about frequency. For a startup website, how often should we post articles? Do we need to consider quantity, or should quality remain the first priority? I think this is one of those questions that has come up time and time again in our space. Emily, do you have any thoughts on this one?
I think it's one size never fits all with this question, I find, but I guess ultimately resources and budget play a really big factor in how often. Just touching on how often a startup, rule of thumb is definitely regular, but if you have all the budget in the world, then yes, you could do that really often. If you don't, then you can't. So it's what's feasible in resource or budget wise. In terms of quality over quantity, that's always the path I would go down. Things I'd think about, is my audience really broad, in which case high quality but more regular would be the best way to go. If it's very niche, then you could get away with maybe pushing slightly less content but still keeping the quality there. And then your overall targets and goals, is it traffic you're looking to push, or are you looking to build an engaged community, which in case you might be looking to push out a bit more, but multi-channel. That's my thoughts on that. But it's a bit of I promised myself would not come in here and say it depends, but I guess for this particular one, I guess it does depend a little bit.
Great. You said it depends, the first one today. Rob, what about you? Any thoughts?
I mean, I agree with Emily's sentiment there as well. I think the other thing I would add is the quality as well. And I suppose quality and quantity can go hand in hand, because you have, if I was to look at the three verticals that were in my bio, for example, so utilities, yeah, no one needs to write articles every week on utilities. It's a utility, it's broadband. You plug it in and it goes. There is other areas, other priorities that you as a business and as an SEO would need to focus on in order to drive volume and value, rather than just churning out articles on utilities. Automotive sector is slightly different, because concept cars, updates, facelifts, new brands, new markets. So it's very different in terms of what the quality and quantity is within each market. And I think I would say is look at what is normally the case with the product that you're going after and what you're doing. Travel, for example, it was difficult to write too many, because there was new destinations, new hotels. Now that was all relevant to the location that we were writing our authority around, be it Mallorca, be it Portugal, be it the Balearic Islands, whatever. It was very much catered to what was popular at the time, but the cadence obviously is driven by what you need to put in front of the customers. And I think as long as the articles they have There are, what's the word I'm looking for? Whether it's good for the customer to have and whether it's knowledgeable and it changes, they get what they need from that article, then it needs writing. If it doesn't, then don't write it.
Great. Ruth, do you have anything to add?
Oh, I just was curious about Simon saying 34 times.
I think he's
In the
just
chat.
I
I know. And Christian's seeing here that quality is the rule of thumb, really. Quality, strategic consistency. And I agree. It's again back to who's your target market. If you're going to have a news page or a blog page, you need to make sure that when you set it up with the website, with the developer, let's have an estimate of how many times we're going to post. I do have one question in the chat, Mike, but just aware of time. Let me know if we have time for one question from the chat.
Yeah, we will do. No problem. Just on this question. So we're called Good Signals. So the idea of us just flooding a website with loads of rubbish content it wouldn't be the case. I'm assuming that I'm saying rubbish content. It's not going to be, I'm sure it wouldn't be that. But I think with how easy it is to use tools like Gemini and ChatGPT and so on, it's so easy to just publish generic content these days. And I think there's never been a more important time to make sure what you are producing or publishing is the best or really good. So I would go quality, and also I agree with Chris on consistency. Just that's something that we try and do because often we'll work with somebody maybe on a project basis to help them with their content strategy, but then we go and I'm always thinking, how can we set something up that they can do on a regular basis without us? And I think that consistency is really important. So what's good for the customer makes sense for the company and also is like possible for your team, and not just flooding the website on day one with a load of content and then not updating for a while. And I think one thing that often gets missed is just updating existing content rather than always
Good idea.
and using tools like Search Console to see what you're getting impressions for, but maybe not clicks, and focusing on just everything that you've got on your website, making sure it's really good, rather than always thinking I need to just publish lots of new stuff. So broadband, I would suggest just keep updating what you got. like Rob said, don't just publish a load of new stuff if you don't need to. Emily, you're nodding. Did you want to say anything else?
Oh, I had a little thing in my head, and it's now you asked me, I've forgotten. But it's that reuse, repurpose, merge, delete. If you don't need it anymore, I don't think there's an issue with actually removing something that's not necessary anymore. But yeah, repurposing and rewriting and refreshing is such a great tactic that I think we forget to do sometimes. And it's all there for you already. You have it, yeah.
And also not just thinking, I'm just trying to remind myself of the question, but not just thinking in terms of blog posts and guides, but also could you do webinars and podcasts and other forms of content that can be used in other places rather than just solely from an SEO perspective. Okay, Ruth, did you want to go with the question in the chat?
Yes, this is slightly different from what we're talking about here to some extent. So as a freelancer, what techniques can I use to objectively assess visual quality of compressed images at various compression levels?
Cool. Okay. Anybody got any thoughts on this one?
So what techniques can I use to objectively assess visual quality of compressed images at various compression levels?
I think most of the tools that you use to compress images usually give you a view before and after. That's what I found whenever I've compressed something for the web. I guess if you're doing it at scale, then you could just look at them as a user. Has anybody else got anything a bit more technical than that as advice? Sorry. No.
The way I've read the question, obviously just my understanding of it, the need for speed. Obviously, there's we know that we want to drive. I suppose we want to look at what KPIs we're defining around that, especially around core web vitals. I think it's up to the individual to understand. Okay, how far can I get to a point where if I do X amount of images, it's going to take me X amount of hours. The value is only going to be X. Actually, priority wise, I've got other things I should focus on. So I think really it's going to be up to the individual, the value of that change and what you deem is in your list of priorities, what you deem effective to get you the biggest return on investment. So I think it's just trying to benchmark that and find a way of measuring and monitoring that. And I think all speed should be measured to a way where we could happily take down a Lighthouse console score, throw it at our devs and be like, fix all of these problems, but they'll be like, this is going to take me like 8 weeks and you're not going to get hardly any feedback. So I think it's just making sure that you've benchmarked and in your own mind understand and prioritize and then go from there.
Great advice. Ruth, I think there's a
Very
few
good.
things in the chat as well.
So yes, so thanks very much for that, Rob, because the other part was how can you balance this with the need for speed and SEO efficiency? We've got a question about what are your views on Google ranking factor documents as well.
Cool. I did have a question. So we did also have a question for that as well.
Okay.
So obviously over the last week, there's been some findings by Bram Fishkin and Mike King just around some sort of documents that they found on the web. And the question is basically, how can I use these insights and findings to improve our results, as they found the actual posts themselves quite technical to read? Obviously, we don't have the context of these documents or anything like that, and we don't know how they're being used, and it's not just for Google search. But has anybody got any thoughts? Are the last week's worth of news, is that going to change your strategy at all? Emily, what about yourself? Are you?
I got a question on it. Do we know how old they are? Like these documents, would we even know if that's now, or how on the timeline of? I guess
not exactly. There are some dates within the documents that I think that are from a couple of months ago, and I think that's what the guys have indicated in the blog posts. But Google, I think there was a post on Search Engine Land with Barry just saying that you don't have the context, and also the timing and so on isn't right. Yeah, no. The thing is, we don't really know much about them. It's just these documents have been found, and there are these.
I think from is like 12 days ago, no one was none the wiser. And you all had a strategy that was to drive X amount of value from your business this year, or from the clients that you've got business this year. So within that 12 months, you've got a list of priorities and a list of plans and a list of value that you want to deliver on. All that this does is allows you to understand if your priorities are correct, and also test yourselves as to whether or not you think, okay, now we're reading about nav boost, stuff like that. Now if I've got some big internal link changes that I want to make on navigation, and I've got like another piece of evidence. Again, it might be slightly more primary evidence than it's secondary evidence, but it's still another piece of evidence that you've already thought about before, because this is why you're a priority list. Ultimately, it's just going to help you understand that and reprioritize slightly, but it's not going to change your strategy, and it shouldn't change anyone's strategy. In fact, it should just be there as a way of testing to understand, okay, I've got some big internal link changes coming up. I've been reading this information. I'm running my tests, whether it's through SEO testing or whatever like that you want to run your tests on. I'll make the changes. Did it drive value for me? Yes or no? Simple as. And I think it's just making sure that you use the information that's been sent out and put across the web, just to benchmark and to understand, and to, I think, give a bit more color to something that you're already going to do. So I think that's the best way I would use the data, and how we will use the data going forward.
Yeah, I guess from our perspective, like we sent out our newsletter on the day that it was all going on. So had a bit of a look and tried to pull some insights. I think what I really took from it was just it hasn't massively changed what we do, like what we got. In fact, I've got our newsletter in front of me, sorry, but it's focused on the overall quality of your website, not just your pages. We were doing that anyway. Create engaging content and web experiences that meet users' expectations and encourage interactions. That's what we were doing. Keep content fresh and up to date, which we've talked about today. Prioritize earning quality links through things like creative campaigns, and no mention of disavow file, which I think Google said many times to just ignore that. That's what I took from it. What about you, Ruth? Did you see any of this?
Well, yes, been reading a lot, and I think as we've been talking about, and as Simon says here, we really need to focus on the strategy, focus on the brand, and so just got to focus on what we were doing before.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, great. So we got 4 minutes left, and I think we'll finish with our regular question, which is, what are you most excited about in terms of SEO? Rob, what are you most excited about in terms of SEO at the moment?
I mean, it's probably a quite boring answer. I still think SGE is definitely something that I think will change massively. I think what you're seeing is probably that's not even the beta version, I think, that came out in the US, and they've dialed it down massively. I think it will change fundamentally. And I think it's a good opportunity for us to, from an SEO, like always, with the stuff that's always put in front of us over the last 15, 16, 17, 20 years, even before me and you were doing it, Mike, and that there's going to be obstacles, that it's another obstacle, sorry, that we can overcome and understand and reverse engineer and drive testing and deliver value that helps customers. I'm really interested to see how it develops. It's quite a big change for Google. If you look at, in terms of what SGE does, you've got from even ad revenue perspective, I think 170 billion pounds that they get through ads. SGE was going to wipe around about 50% of that. There was no way that it is going out as you see it today, especially within the UK market. So I think for me, very much looking at that and how they develop that going forward, because I think it will be an opportunity for some to really help drive, and I think also deliver on value to the clients, the businesses they're working for.
Amazing. Emily, what about you? What are you most excited about at the moment in terms of SEO?
Couple things. I think just with people values being behind people's search intents a little bit more, just things like ethical SEO, people maybe turning to more ethical search engines. Like, is it Acacia? That one that plants a tree with every so many searches, things like that, but also how people are changing how they search, different platforms, with Reddit being more popular. I found myself using Reddit, and I've never really used it before. So that's something I've been quite interested in as well. And then just the kind of the capabilities with more AI driven tools. I'm quite excited to see where predictive SEO could go and SEO forecasting. That's just something I've been reading about recently, whether that I've always been a little bit scared to do that previously. So I think whether it be helpful or not, or bite me in the bum, let's see. But I'm quite excited to see where these tools can help us go in that area.
Great. Ruth, what about you? What are you most excited about in terms of SEO at the moment?
I think really the endless opportunities in SEO, but I still say Google Business Profile, it's a great tool, and I think just need to maximize to its potential. And Emily, Simon agrees with you, Ecosia. So is Albert.
Great, that's it. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you to our speakers for joining us. Thanks for those live on the call and those watching on YouTube afterwards. And thank you to our co-host, Ruth. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you all for joining us.
Yeah, and thank you for those that submitted the questions. We'll be back next week, so have a lovely weekend. Bye.
Thank you very much. Have a great weekend.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.